everybody. I'm the Pale Recluse, coming out of hiding to present you with another rant. This time, I'm going to be ranting on America's #1 sitcom at the moment, Big Bang Theory. Now, I hardly see people have personal issues with the show in real life, but on the internet, the hate for the show is widespread, and apparently, a lot of people on the internet have the same problems that I do with it. I'll go over those points, and then I'll discuss my own gripes with the show at the end. Firstly, and this one is probably the most obvious, the show relies heavily on stereotypes to make the characters and the humor. But here's the problem. It's not funny. I've watched a few episodes, and I've yet to laugh at some of the nerd humor, which is sad considering that's where the supposed humor is supposed to come from. The only jokes I laughed at were when the main guys, excluding Sheldon, were camping to watch a meteor shower and ate Howard's mom's weed cookies and got higher than a fucking kite, and the phone whip whenever one of the guys would submit to their girlfriends. Other than that, the humor is very much a miss rather than a hit. Going on to the characters, they're just caricatures of stereotypical nerds. And when you look at them at their core, they're all one-dimensional cutouts and they all act the same. They're all into comic books and science, and they're very socially awkward, especially Sheldon. Oh, since we're talking about characters, let's talk about Sheldon real quick. I do not like this character at all. He makes deliberate asshole characters like Mr. Burns look like a fucking saint. Sheldon is the biggest asshole I've ever seen on television. He supposedly has Asperger's, and that just pisses me off even more. When it comes to him and his condition, I have to reiterate that Sheldon is written in a stereotypical manner. He relies excessively on routine. He's greatly attached to limited interests like comic books and Star Trek. He feels the need to correct people every time they open their mouth, which makes him come across as condescending. He's not expressive emotionally. He doesn't understand jokes and sarcasm. He hates sex, and so much more. This is the worst way you could depict a character with Asperger's. And sadly, we've seen this time and time again. Any character that's on the autism spectrum is written with just their symptoms and not actually written like, a person. I wouldn't be surprised if people think that everyone on the autism spectrum is just like Sheldon because of the show. I also wouldn't blame people with autism if they had contempt for the character or the writers and are paranoid that anyone they interact with are merely just putting up with them like the characters do with Sheldon. I honestly don't see what people like about him. Secondly, and I know I'm going to come across as a feminist or an SJW when I say this, the show seems to have sexist undertones. What do I mean by that? Well, according to the people who work on the show, girl nerds don't exist. And if they do exist, they're treated like the bane of every nerd's existence. All the females are written in a way that they think the things the guys are into are childish and stupid. But I do remember an episode where they looked into the comic books their boyfriends read and seemed to be getting into it. But the guys had a bullshit bitch-fist extravaganza over it. They were all like, "Oh my god, our girlfriends are reading comics! Blasphemy! That's what guys do!" It's equivalent to when a boy puts a "No Girls Allowed" sign on his clubhouse. It's like the show was written in the 80s when girl nerds were practically unheard of. But this was written in the 2000s, where girls were starting to show off their nerdy side more often and were proud of it. But that's not even the end, or the worst of it. This is where the show really gets to me. In the earlier episodes, Leonard develops a crush on the new girl, Penny. I put crush lightly because the only thing that drew him to her was her looks. You're really pushing it, show. Anyway, the way the show treats Penny in the earlier episodes is incredibly insulting. You see, you're supposed to sympathize with Leonard when he can't get her, whether it's because she's seen another guy or she doesn't feel any chemistry between them. And the show treats her like she's stupid for not seeing how great of a guy Leonard is, and also somewhat damaged from being in relationships with douchebags. So the show is like the embodiment of the nice guy. The guy who claims he's nice when he's actually an asshole, pisses and moans about how girls only like so-called assholes instead of him, and does everything for a girl he's interested in the hopes of getting something out of it, usually something sexual. And that's kind of how Leonard comes across. A nice guy. With how he and Penny are portrayed in the show, it's no wonder they got together. Shit attracts shit. Thirdly, the show treats being a nerd as a joke. Every time one of the guys does something that's considered nerdy, the laugh track kicks in. Ha ha, someone's excited about the new Star Wars movie coming out or playing a video game. They don't even try to put in some kind of joke. Just doing those things is the joke. Because of that, a lot of the nerd community thinks that the show is trying to make a mockery out of them and their culture and make them into a laughingstock. I would understand and maybe even forgive it if this was made in the 80s where that type of thing was looked down upon and made into a joke, but it wasn't. Now we finally get to my own personal input in the show. I don't really hate the show, in all honesty. If anything, I'm more so disappointed in it. The show revolves around nerds and relies on nerd culture to make up the characters and humor. But that's where the show fails at showing nerds and nerd culture. It's not limited to only a few select hobbies, like science and superheroes. It's a very vast culture with all types of hobbies within it, like novels, history, art, and even things people wouldn't consider nerdy like sports. Anyone can be a nerd over anything. And there are people from all walks of life within the community and have different personalities and interests. Most aren't the stereotypical love-shy, awkward comic book reading nerd who has next to no friends or no friends at all and can't talk to girls. But the show decided to limit itself by using stereotypes. Think of all the possible ways the show could have branched out in representing nerd culture. They could have had one of the characters be an art nerd, where they have a vast array of knowledge on art history and different art styles. Or another character could have been an anime and manga nerd who cosplays occasionally. That character would have really won audiences over, since anime and cosplays become increasingly popular as of the time of this video's posting. Or even a bookworm, one of the more common but classic nerd tropes. And they could have made some of those nerds females, since there are more female nerds than ever before. The people who worked on the show had the opportunity to do something with the concept, but they decided that was too hard and went with what we got today. Hopefully someone will come along and take the concept and retool it to actually show the different sides of nerd culture and the people within it, and to make it actually funny. That's all I've got to say. This is a Pale Recluse, and I'll see you the next time I decide to come out of hiding.